So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to our first lecture today, entitled When Television, TV Adopts Your Children. I am pleased to be in Vancouver after a long time. It's been about 15 years. I last time visited Vancouver, and it was on occasion of my cousin's 25th wedding anniversary. It was a happy occasion, and we spent wonderful time together. And I had the opportunity to see a few well-known sites here in Vancouver. This time I'm coming as a speaker, and I'd like to share with you a few thoughts on this particular topic. I'd like to first ask the question, why are we here today dealing with this particular subject matter, and why we have chosen this particular title? Because we care about our children. I have here with me a book written by a well-known educator, and you probably have heard about him, Dr. James Dobson. And the book is entitled Bringing Up Girls. I got it from one lady who also has a family and children. And we have a girl and a boy in our family. And as they are growing, we would like to learn more about how to raise a girl. I like very much the introductory statement that Dr. Dobson penned in this book on page 3. And I'll share with you this statement. It says the following: children are a gift from God, and we are stewards of their welfare. Training up our daughters, and for the same matter, I mean boys as well, sons, in this sense implies helping them to navigate the cultural minefields that lie in their paths, teaching them eternal values, talents, and perspectives. It means instilling within them an appreciation for truthfulness, trustworthiness, self-discipline, self-control, generosity, and sweetness of spirit. It means teaching them modesty, morality, and manners. It means helping them overcome the natural inclination towards selfishness, aggressiveness, violence, and slovenliness. It means teaching them to work and learn and think. That is just the beginning, which is why parenthood is such a daunting responsibility, requiring careful forethought and planning. This is what we will be talking about in the pages that follow. So Dr. Dobson is, in this book, addressing and discussing the issue how to raise the girls. Now, but he made a very good point here, stating that we care about our children. For those who are Christians, for those who are religious, we consider our children a gift from God. And we would like to raise them in the best possible way. Even if you are not religious, natural love and affection will lead you to care for your offspring. Even in the animal kingdom, the mothers and fathers, so to say, parents care for their offspring. So what we as parents in the modern society, in the modern world, can do to protect our children as far as it comes to media influence. Another author, Roger Silverstone, in a book, Television and Everyday Life, page 3, talks about pervasiveness of television in the modern society. I like what he stated here. Watching television and discussing television and reading about television takes place on an hourly basis. The result of focused or unfocused, the conscious or unconscious attention. Television accompanies us as we wake up, as we breakfast, as we have our tea, and as we drink in bars. It comforts us when we are alone. It helps us sleep. It gives us pleasure. It bores us, and sometimes it challenges us. It provides us with opportunities to be both sociable and solitary. Although, of course, it was not always so, and although we have had to learn how to incorporate the medium into our lives. He's now quoting certain authors, Spiegel, for example, he studied from 1990 and 1992. We now take television entirely for granted. That's a very important thought. We take television for granted. We take television for granted in a way similar to how we take the everyday life for granted. We want more of it, some of us. We complain about it, but we watch it anyway. But we do not understand very well, nor do we feel the need to understand how it works, either mechanically or ideologically. And here again quotes another study by Hall. So you see, he's saying television is present with us every day, from the waking moments in the morning, as you go to breakfast, as you go about your work, you go to different places, TV screen is everywhere. But do we understand television? Do we know how to relate to it? Do we know how to manage it? How to tame the tube, as one author said? So then it follows what our experience of television is of a piece with our experience of the world. We do not expect it to be, nor can we imagine it to be significantly otherwise. So television is present with the modern man in everyday life and situation, all the day. And I will close with the following paragraph from the same source. The palpable integration of television into our daily lives, its emotional significance, both as disturber and comforter, its cognitive significance, how it influences our mind, our thinking, both as informer and misinformer, its spatial and temporal significance, ingrained as it is in the routines of daily life, its visibility, and just as an object, the box in the corner, but in the multitude of texts, journals, magazines, newspapers, hoardings, books like this one, its impact, both remembered and forgotten, its political significance as a core institution of the modern state, this integration is both complete and fundamental. So he's saying television is extremely important for the modern man, for the modern society. Now, when he talks about political significance, let me tell you, when there are political changes in some states, especially violent changes, what is the first institution that the new governments or revolutionaries like to seize? It's a national TV station. They want to control it. Who controls the TV? He is in charge. He is in the seat of power. So I propose that as we proceed in this lecture, that we examine the television and its influence from both ideological aspects, the ideological underpinnings of television, TV programming, and also then that we turn to everyday life and make a practical application, especially in respect of children and families. Now let me tell you, I am not an expert on the media and communication. I mean, there are many books that are specialized courses in media and communication. I'm not expert in that field. However, having a legal background, I have learned to judiciously use the expertise of people in other fields. You are not an expert, but you have an expert opinion, and you know how to use it. And I think every one of us can use judiciously what is available, today through internet, in the books, in the media about television. And I will quote some of these studies that you yourself can follow up and do some research. Now, in this respect, I would like to follow with the following statement. There is a humorous story about two gentlemen going for a summer camping, and we were just in Toronto looking for a summer camp for our families with children. So anyway, so they went out camping, they had a tent, and in the middle of the night, one of them wakes up, and he sees the stars in the sky, and he wakes up, not just his, friend, and says, hey, look up in the sky, and what do you see? And the gentleman said, astronomically, when I look at the sky, it tells me there are millions of galaxies and potentially billions of planets in the universe. Astrologically, it tells me that Saturn is in Leo, constellation of stars. Theologically, it tells me that God is great and we are small and insignificant. Horologically, as far as telling the time, it tells me it's about 3 in the morning. And meteorologically, it tells me it will be a beautiful day. And then he turns to his friend who asked him the question and said, why are you asking me this? He says, somebody stole our tent. The tent is gone. So he was looking up in the sky and talking about, universe and the stars and meteorologically and this and that, and he didn't notice that the tent was gone. So this is something that we have to think about our perception of the world and even television today. We are interacting with it every day, and people are describing this programming, that programming, how to reach the audience. But do people really see this important picture? And this is something that we have to also look. People can scientifically explain many individual phenomena in nature and in the society, but they can miss relevant, essential point. There is another story that might well have happened. Two Australian sailors came to London, England, and after embarking, disembarking, and they were, in the pubs, they were drinking, and in the night, it was a foggy night in London, they were wobbling, gidding, walking in the streets, and they got lost. Now, they needed, some directions, what to do, so there was a gentleman coming toward them, and it was a high-ranking British naval officer who had a lot of shiny medals, on his chest. And as he approached them, they asked him, "Sir," in Australian accent, "could you tell us where we are right now?" And he said, "Gentlemen, do you know who I am?" And then one of them told the other, "We are really in trouble. We do not know where we are, and this man doesn't know who he is." So you see, today in the modern society, we may ask ourselves also a question: do we know where we are? And do we know who we are and what we are about to do? The most difficult question in life to explain is the question why the human mind is corrupt. Have you ever thought about that question? Why human mind is corrupt? I'll tell you, 2 years ago, a survey conducted by BBC globally asked the question, what is the biggest problem in the world? In the past years, it was usually poverty or crime. But 2 years ago, in November 2010, the question number one, global question was identified as corruption. Why do we have corruption in the world? And if you go in the eastern part of the world, Europe and Asia, Africa, and even if you come to America, corruption is spreading all over, more and more. Just recently, I was listening to the CBC, Canadian radio. There was an interview with one gentleman who is in financial management, working in the banking industry, and he wrote a book about corruption in the financial sector. And he was mentioning the cases, the stock trading, insider trading. He was mentioning, as an example, Enron. You heard about Enron several years ago. How people are corrupt. They will do anything. They will find any loophole in the laws just to enrich themselves, to take advantage of the situation. With the Enron, they were turning off power generating stations in the United States to increase the price of the hydro, of electricity, just, make themselves rich. People don't care if they can find a way to, take advantage of the situation. Well-known Christian apologist Ravi Zacharias wrote this. It's a very good statement in his book, Recapture the Wonder. In the 1950s, he's describing the state of the society, especially regarding the young people and children. In the 1950s, kids lost their innocence. They were liberated from their parents by well-paying jobs, cars, and lyrics in music that gave rise to the new term, the generation gap. In the 1960s, kids lost their authority. It was a decade of protest. Church, state, and parents were all called into question and found wanting. Their authority was rejected, yet nothing ever replaced it. In the 1970s, the kids lost their love. It was the decade of meism, dominated by hyphenated words beginning with self, self-image, self-esteem, self-assertion. It made for a lonely world. Kids learned everything there was to know about sex and forgot everything there was to know about love, and very few had the nerve to tell what was the difference. In the 1980s, kids lost their hope. Stripped of innocence, authority, and love, and plagued by the horror of nuclear nightmare, large and growing number of this generation stopped believing in the future. And if I may add one more, I would say that in the late 1990s, the kids lost their power to reason. Less and less were they taught the very basics of language, truth, and logic, and they grew up with the irrationality of postmodern world. In this new millennium, 21st century, kids woke up and found out that somewhere in the midst of all this change, they had lost their imagination. Violence and perversion entertained them till none could talk of killing innocents, since none was innocent anymore. What do you think about this statement? Now, we are all shocked by what happened last week in Colorado, Denver. We have a gentleman here who is a speaker from Denver, and we just this morning said, wow, what happened there? A peaceful community, someone walking in the movie theater and shooting people, and wanton, senseless violence. Why this happens? It's a question. What happened with the children over in these past few decades? And Rabbi Zechariah said it well. Lost in the cyberspace, they are more able to relate to the ideas than they are able to relate to people. This is the generation of young people. And the changes are taking place with such rapidity that even the young people have difficulties connecting with each other. I mean, a person who is in mid-20s has difficulty to speak and connect with a person who is in late teens because there are so rapid changes. And what is very fascinating about the computer age is that it is built on logic. You have algorithms and you are having logic, and when you do this, the computer will do that. You give a task and then it responds. There is a logic built in the computer. But when it comes to the meaning of life and ethics, we do not see any more cause and effect connection. That logical connection. We live in irrational, illogical world. And I will explain to you how it operates. So people fail to see the connection between ethical behavior and the economic crisis, even in the present world. You see, the world is now troubled by economic crisis, in Europe especially, and other parts of the world. The fundamental problem, as I mentioned, was unethical behavior in doing business. People didn't care. And ultimately, the result was disaster. I'd like to propose a few factors that have contributed to this state of the society in the last and in this present century. One was the popularization in the last 20, 30 years, popularization of the death of God movement and stridency to live with its ramifications. Death of God movement and stridency and a brazenness to live with the consequences of that concept. Now, for example, in 19th century, end of 19th century, German philosopher Nietzsche, you probably heard about him. He was talking about death of God. But you know what Nietzsche said? If we kill God, we will lose our horizon. And he used the metaphors. We will not know what is up and down. Should we light a candle in the morning? He was using these metaphors. You are losing a firm point, a center of gravity. And we will have to invent new games. What is happening in the modern society today, God has been removed as a center of gravity, especially as absolute moral standards. So people today are inventing their own moral standards, what to live by. And this is a tragedy. I'll give you an example. You probably have heard about Richard Dawkins, an Oxfordian, a well-known atheist, and he wrote the following lines. And please, I'm not imagining or fabricating this. This is what he wrote. There was a well-known television chef who did a stunt recently by cooking human placenta and serving it up as a pâté, fried with shallots, garlic, lime juice, and everything. Everybody said it was delicious. the father had 17 helpings. A scientist can point out, as I have done, that this is actually an act of cannibalism. Worse, since cloning is such a live issue at the moment because the placenta is a true genetic clone of the baby, the father was actually eating his own baby's clone. Science can't tell you if it's right or wrong to eat your own baby's clone, but it can tell you that's what you are doing. Then you can decide for yourself whether you think it's right or wrong. Now, this is a very interesting example, and I want to tell you or help you understand what did he say. He is saying the science cannot tell you whether it's right or wrong, but science will tell you what are you doing. Explain scientifically what you're doing. You're eating placenta, you're eating, genetic clone. But then he turns around, and says the following. And then he says, then you can decide what you will do. The very thing which he removed, he smuggled in with the other hand back in. This is not physics, this is metaphysics. He is not now anymore scientist, he is now a moral philosopher when he tells you what is right or wrong, that you can be a moral judge. Science cannot tell you what is morally right or wrong. Science can only tell you the fact. And by the way, when we come about the existence of God, many people are misled. They think that science can prove there is no God. Science cannot prove there is no God. And even some atheistic philosophers have said, don't use the science to prove non-existence of God. It cannot do that. But you see, people have lost the firm point. They have lost the center of gravity. Science cannot help you in that. You are lost. And now people are coming up with their own moral codes. G.K. Chesterton, a well-known Christian apologist, said once, the tragedy of disbelieving in God is not that a person ends up believing in nothing. Now, please listen to these lines. The tragedy of disbelieving in God is not that a person ends up in believing in nothing. Alas, it is much worse. That person may end up believing in anything. Anything you can believe. And this is what I'm telling you now about this senseless killing there, what happened. Now, if you don't have the firm center of gravity, now you can come up with any ideas. You can kill people. Why not? If it's fun. Now, the second thing is the gathering storm of Eastern pantheism in Western setting and disorientation of the cultural ethos. One author who is dealing with this issue, he said, I wanted to write a book from Oprah to Chopra. Well, but you know the well-known TV personality Oprah and some of her views. And there is another gentleman by the name of Chopra, and he is a well-known speaker. Just recently in Toronto, there was a big conference Microsoft organized for the software developers around the world, and in downtown Toronto, and there were Mr. Chopra also speaking. So anyway, what we are talking about here is that they are dabbling in metaphysics of impersonal absolute. These are gurus sowing the seeds of bringing an ideal of health that you can obtain by connecting with impersonal absolute, tapping into energy of the universe, endangering the different states of mind. Now, some yogis are fighting. They're trying to patent the different techniques of breathing and rest. Believe me. And pantheism is present in many TV programming. For example, even in children's cartoons that is produced by Disney. I do not have time now to deal with that. There is element of pantheism. But parents are often don't pay attention to that. There are specialized DVDs that can help you to understand and recognize these subliminal messages that are conveyed to the children and young people in these cartoons. The Bible does not say, and I would like to mention one more thing. The third point, we mentioned this, the death of God movement that removes the morality, the point of gravity, and then we mentioned these pantheistic ideas coming in, and the third factor is the power to inform through visual. You may think that video is the greatest invention since sliced bread, But this is not so. Video, although it's useful and imaging, has nowhere the power of the word. The Bible doesn't say in the beginning was video or in the beginning was image, but the Bible says in the beginning there was a word. Why does it say so? Don't you think it would be nice? I mean, why Jesus didn't wait until to deliver his Sermon on the Mount when the video was invented? Wouldn't it be nice to watch the Sermon on the Mount on the video, But it is in the written word. Now, the word will always give you the sovereignty of your imagination. The visual will circumscribe your imagination and get you to see the way the person making the visual wants you to see. The word will give you freedom, sovereignty of imagination. Visual will limit your imagination in some ways. If its imaging is true and accurate, it's fine. But what if it's wrong? You are caught. You are seduced. Sound bites are not truth. It is not by accidental that since invention of the visual world, we can see unscrupulous individuals seducing young men and the growth of pornography in the present world. The visual will never satisfy, leave the hunger for more. In Hebrews 1:1, the Bible says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. Things that you have not seen, by faith you accept the word. William Blake, a well-known British poet, wrote 200 years ago. That's very, very interesting lines. These life's dim windows of the soul distorts the heavens from pole to pole and leads you to believe a lie when you see with, not through the eye. Let me repeat it. Listen to this. These life's dim windows of the soul distorts the heavens from pole to pole and leads you to believe a lie when you see with, not through the eye. So what he said, we are intended to see with the eye that is illumined or illuminated by the conscience. And then you see true reality. If you use sensory apparatus, your eyes, and you do not look through the conscience, you will see distorted reality. You will reconstruct the reality according to your mind and not see the true reality. So the eyes can be misleading if you do not have conscience that is enlightened. The visual has the capacity to make an individual think of themselves more than they actually are. And I will not deal much with that because the eye can seduce you, and you have to do is to take a look at the lives of rich and famous on the TV, and you can see how messed up many lives of them are. There is one aphorism which says, television is the literature of the illiterate, the culture of the lowbrow, the wealth of the poor, the privilege of the underprivileged, and the exclusive club of the excluded masses. So through television, people can imagine themselves to be in an unrealistic world. Not the real world, but somewhere else. So young people, be very careful how you monitor your viewing. If you do not monitor your viewing, this monitoring will control you. And you, in this generation, will never be able to harness your imagination. You see that in reality, and this is a very important thought, I'd like to share this with you. In reality, nothing is so beautiful as the good. In reality, nothing is so boring, nothing is so monotonous as evil in the real world. Now, in the imagined world of entertainment, it is the other way around. Fictional evil is intriguing and attractive. Fictional good is boring and flat, so you are seduced. Do you see in the movies, what are the blockbuster movies? About some good family, some good people? Rarely. It is killing, suspense, immorality, divorce. You see many movies and TVs shows with very, very good family life, teaching you moral values and people, no. Violence, sex, nudity. And then there is a note, viewer discretion advised. See, this is how, in reality, I'll tell you one thing. The war, aggression, and violence in real life are terrible. You just have to read the eyewitnesses' account of people who were in that movie theater in Denver when this shooting happened. Horrible. You watch it in the movie and it can be entertaining. When you talk about war, I was only once experiencing real shooting. And this happened actually in my homeland in Croatia. There was a civil war going on. I was visiting my country. And the war was not going on at that time in that part of the country. But I just happened to be in my parents' home when there was some person who was having some mental problems. He was heavily armed and he began to shoot in my neighborhood. And I heard he was shooting even over our home, and I heard the branches on the trees, being cut off as the bullets were flying. Believe me, I have never in my life felt so terrified, intimidated. Never in the movie what you see can bring even close to you that experience of war and shooting. It's a terrible experience. And the final point as about ideological side is that there is a complete shift to the young world. And this is very important for children, young people, and families to keep in mind. The young people are the ones who make the advertisement what it is. The young ones are those who make the movie makers do what they do. Now, what is the policy in Hollywood? If the Hollywood film producers can attract the attention of the 18-year-old, they know they have a blockbuster in making, for sure. This is the target audience, young people and children. And this is a shift both in advertising industry and in the film and movie industry. So we have to be very aware that this is what's happening in the world behind us. Ideological, programming, underpinnings. Now, let me just for a moment share with you a few thoughts about how shall we approach, how shall we analyze this. I'd like to tell you that I have consulted various studies. And I'd like to recommend to you one study that you can easily find on internet. It's University of Michigan Health System, Your Child Development and Behavior Resources. You just can type in the search engine University of Michigan Television and Children. It's an excellent study. It's well-referenced, well-documented. And I'll share with you some of the summaries from this study. It doesn't seem that there is a religious bias present here. It's just a scientific study. And the authors very well pointed out what are the main issues when we come to children and television. Now, first of all, they say that television may have a good side. In entertaining and educational world, and can open up new worlds for kids, give them a chance to travel the globe, learn about different cultures, and gain exposure to ideas they may never encounter in their own community. So there is a pro-social message. If there are positive role models, the child can simply imitate and learn something good from the positive role models. So I'm not advocating here at this time that television is ultimately unacceptable. However, we are focused on immense danger that is present with television and that parents should be aware of and how to deal with that. And even these authors say, however, the reverse can also be true. Kids are likely to learn things from TV that parents don't want them to learn. TV can adversely affect kids' health, behavior, and family life in negative ways. I'd like to share with you some of the results or findings of the scientific research, how the television can negatively, adversely affect children's health, behavior, and social life. Now, there are thousands of studies done on television and children, and it's proven beyond doubt that television can affect kids' sleep, weight, grades, behavior, and more. Spending time watching television also can take time away from healthy activities like playing outside with friends, eating dinner together with the family, reading, and some other music, sports, and other activities. So even if the children are watching, say, good program on TV, excessive watching or spending a lot of time in front of TV can take away time from other useful activities. And I will refer to that in a moment. TV viewing starts earlier than other forms of media, often beginning before age 2. So very early. We do not yet know what effect TV viewing by babies may have on their development. I will mention some particular statement in that respect. Now, very briefly, statistically, how much are our children today exposed to TV viewing? Statistics that are documented. TV viewing among kids is an 8-year high. On average, children aged 2 to 5 spend 32 hours a week in front of TV, watching television, DVDs, DVRs, and videos, and using a game console. Could you imagine that? Children 2 to 5 years spend 32 hours in front of TV a week. This is more than, any other activity. Children 6 to 11 spend about 28 hours a week in front of TV. The vast majority of viewing, 97%, is live TV. 71% of 8 to 18-year-olds have a TV in their bedroom. 54% have a DVD VCR player. 37% have cable satellite TV. And 20% have premium channels. Now, the other thing is, now the TV, watching actually TV set is in decrease. But now TV content is available through other media, which is now cell phones, smartphones, and I will just refer to these sources. That these TV content such as on internet watching, TV watching, cell phones, and iPods. These led to the increase in time spent viewing TV, even as TV set viewing has declined. In about 2/3 of households, the TV is usually on during meals. 2/3 TV is on during meals. In 53% of households, 7th to 12th graders, there are no rules about TV watching. More than half families, children from 7th to the 12th grade, there are no rules about watching TV. So indiscriminate watching whenever they are looking at TV. And 51% of households, the TV is on most of the time. More than half of the households, TV is on most of the time. And so on. Now, how, as you can see, if your child is a typical, TV is playing a very important role, big role in his or her life. Here are some key research findings to keep in mind as you decide what kind of role you want TV to play in your family. Now, TV is replacing probably some of healthy activities in your child's life. Playing with other children, being physically active, getting fresh air, reading, and so on. Kids who spend more time watching TV, both with or without parents, spend less time interacting with the family members. Excessive TV viewing can contribute to poor grades, sleep problems, behavior problems, obesity, and risky behavior. Advertisers target kids, and on average, children see tens of thousands of TV commercials each year. This includes many of ads for unhealthy snack foods and drinks. Children and youth see on average about 2,000 beer and wine ads on TV per year. 2,000 wine and beer ads. Kids see favorite characters smoking. Now, smoking is banned. Smoking ads on the TV, but what they're having a so-called product placement. You are having a character in the movie who is smoking. And this also influences the behavior of young people. Now, there is a very interesting question. Does the TV affect children's brain development? I will just give you an opinion on that because this is quite a sensitive issue. How the brain development and viewing the TV by children, in what is the relationship? Now, there is not, the scientific community has not yet reached conclusive proof. However, I will quote here the American Academy of Pediatrics. They take a better safe than sorry stance on TV for young children. They say the following: it may be tempting to put your infant or toddler in front of the television, especially to watch shows created just for children under age 2. But American Academy of Pediatrics say don't do it. These early years are crucial in child development. The Academy is concerned about the impact of television programming intended for children younger than age 2 and how it could affect your children's development. Pediatricians strongly oppose targeted programming, especially when it's used to market toys, games, dolls, unhealthy food, and other products to toddlers. Any positive effect of television on infants and toddlers is still open to question, but the benefits of parent-child interaction are proven. Under age 2, talking, singing, reading, listening to music, or playing are far more important to a child development than any TV show. We have a family in Toronto who had a child, about a year or 2 years old, something like that, who had a little bit slow speech development. And they took the child to the experts, pediatricians and logopeds. And they advised them, please do not expose the child to the TV in order to develop speech properly. So it may interfere with the speech development. So pediatricians are cautious. Do not expose so young children. Now, there are marketers that, we are having, baby Einstein, we're having this or that. Your child will speed up, development. They're saying, well, be cautious. Be cautious with that. So, in addition, TV can discourage and replace reading for children. Reading requires much more thinking than television, and we know that reading fosters young people's healthy brain development. Even if they cannot read, if you, as a parent, read to them, that's good. And when they come to the age they can read, encourage them to read. It develops the brain. Now, how about TV and aggressive and violent behavior? I will not go into the detailed study, but according to the American Academy of Pediatricians, extensive research evidence indicates that media violence can contribute to aggressive behavior, desensitization to violence, nightmares, and fear of being harmed. So if children are exposed, and do you know how much they're exposed to violence on TV? An average American child will see 200,000 violent acts and 16,000 murders on TV by age 18. And some people say, well, this will not influence the child's behavior. But research shows it does. I would not be surprised at all at these young men who killed so many people there in Denver, that he had a lot of exposure to various media and the violence. These ideas, you cannot go and shoot and kill people, innocent people, without having your brain being affected by something adversely. Something must have affected the brain, and the research shows conclusively that violence in media affects the children's behavior. Children imitate the violence they see on TV, shows the research. Children under age 8 cannot tell the difference between reality and fantasy, making them more vulnerable to learning from and adopting as reality the violence they see on TV. And I can go on. What parents can do, we will talk about that. So parents have to do something, and we will address this issue in a moment. Now, television can scare the children, and if they see monsters, they can be scared in the room. They, if you turn off the light and so on, when they see these images, they are imprinted on their minds, and they can be scared in various situations. Scary-looking things like grotesque monsters especially frighten children aged 2 to 7. This is what the research shows. Many children exposed to scary movies regret they watched because of the intensity of their fright reactions. And how does watching television affect performance in school? Again, reading is affected, and doing homework, pursuing hobbies, and getting enough sleep, and so on. Now let me say something very briefly about children and health. TV is a public health issue in several different ways. First of all, kids get lots of information about health from TV, much of it from ads, and do not generally give through or balanced information. They're not given about healthy lifestyle and food choices. So how? There are advertisers who are targeting children. They're advertising food, and children are simply watching that. And by the way, let me tell you, children can very well memorize various lines, what people speak on TV, or they can memorize the scenes. There was a very interesting case reported when one mother was telling her daughter, she was about, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, she's saying, it's a bedtime, it's past bedtime, you should go to sleep. And she says, Mommy, it's not a bedtime, it's a Miller time. There was a show going on the TV, and she was saying, it's not a bedtime, it's a show called Miller Time. So children remember, and they memorize these things. Second, watching lots of television can lead to childhood obesity and overweight, because as they sit in front of TV, they become inactive and they're lacking physical exercise. Just the other day on CNN, there was a study about physical inactivity causes 1 in 10 deaths worldwide, study says. This was posted on Wednesday, July 18. I just picked it up, and it's an amazing study. And what it says, physical inactivity causes 1 in 10 deaths worldwide, according to a series of studies released in British medical journal, The Lancet, putting it on par with the dangers of smoking and obesity. The results also suggest that public health officials treat this situation as a pandemic. So actually, physical inactivity is very dangerous for children because it can lead to obesity and lifelong health problems. And let me tell you something else. How about use of alcohol? I have seen some films in my life, and I can testify, and you can testify as well. The use of alcohol is rarely, if ever, portrayed in a TV or in the movies as negative. People are drinking in the films, and they are having a good time, they are joking, they are enjoying themselves. Alcohol is portrayed as something, that to stimulate, to relax you, to have a fun, and children do not get a proper message about alcohol. Many studies have shown that alcoholic drinks are the most common beverage portrayed on TV, and that they are almost never shown in a negative light. This is the research that shows here. Recent studies all showed that exposure to drinking in movies increases the likelihood that viewers themselves will have positive thoughts about drinking. And alcohol is very damaging for health. Children also who see smoking are more likely to smoke. And how about sexuality and television? Well, you know that very well. The number of sex scenes on TV has nearly doubled since 1998, with 70% of the top 20 most watched shows by teens including sexual content. 15% scenes with sexual intercourse depict characters that have just met having sex. Of the shows with sexual content, an average of 5 scenes per hour involves sex. Sex is everywhere present. and especially targeting young people. It's a fun. People just meet and they are intimate. These are the messages portrayed on TVs. Watching sexual content on TV is linked to becoming pregnant or being responsible for pregnancy. In the book that I quoted here by Dr. Dobson, he's just saying about bringing up girls, how important it is to monitor what they're watching and what kind of role models they have. Let me share with you a thought that he expressed here. Helping to promote, on page 7 in this book, helping to promote some of this dangerous and antisocial behavior is an army of bad girls on parade throughout the culture. They are pop icons, starlets, and American idols who are highly influential among teens. Although the in crowd is constantly changing, today's superstars include Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie, Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, and numerous other sex spots who help to warp this generation of young girls. The most brazen among them don't wear undergarments at times and have even allowed themselves to be photographed by the paparazzi from strategic angles. These are the role models of young teenagers. And then he continues about one well-known pop star. It's a superstar, actually. Another of the bad girls, quote unquote, is Angelina Jolie, who said in an interview with a German women's magazine, I quote, I doubt that fidelity is absolutely essential for a relationship. It's worse to love your partner and talk badly about him afterwards. Neither Brad Pitt, nor I have ever claimed that living together means to be chained together. We make sure that we never restrict each other. How do you understand this message? So, and Brad Pitt, by the way, was raised in a Christian, conservative Baptist home. But now there is no restriction. You can do whatever you want. And I will not go further. You see, the messages that children can see in the movies, in the films, in TV, are influencing their behavior. I will close with a few thoughts, what you can do. Let me ask you, I have here a questionnaire, it's a kind of a quiz, a few questions that you can just think about whether you are a TV addict. Just listen to these questions and think about yourself. I automatically turn on the television when I walk into the room. I have certain programs that I watch every evening. I sometimes find myself saying no to invitations that would interfere with my viewing. I stay up later than I intend because of television. I prefer to eat meals while watching television. I leave the television on when people visit me. I use television as a babysitter. I object to the language and values of certain programs, but I continue watching them. You see, warning, but you go on. I watch some programs that I do not allow my children to watch. I spend more time watching television than participating in the Lord's work or studying the Bible. So you see, we have to think, is any of these our experience? If it is, or more of these items, we might be addicted to the television. Now, let me, in closing, share with you through few advices. For those who are Christians and who read the Bible, I'd like to share just few scriptures. Proverbs 15:14. The wise and hungry are hungry for truth, but a fool feeds on trash. In Philippians 4:8, whatever is true, right, pure, lovely, admirable, or praiseworthy, think on such things. Here is my favorite, Psalm 103, verse 3. I will set no unclean thing before my eyes. And Job 31:1, Job made a covenant with his eyes. Perhaps we ought to do the same. There are few suggestions what should be our response? One is from a pen of a spiritual author from 19th century who wrote the following in the book Adventist Home. The youth should not be left to learn good and evil indiscriminately. The parents thinking that at some future time the good will predominate and the evil lose its influence. The evil will increase faster than the good. It is possible that the evil which children learn may be eradicated after many years, but who would trust to this? Whatever else they neglect, parents should never leave their children free to wander in the paths of sin. So see, there is a warning. We have to take care of our children and what they are doing. Here are some suggestions. What should be our response? Here, I would like to propose a few things. If you are watching TV, make a log. What do you watch throughout the week? Every detail, and then review it. Is this a good programming? Is this a good quality content? Be it internet, be it television. I didn't talk about internet, but it applies, many things apply to internet as well. Now, if you plan to watch the next week or whenever, make a plan what you want to watch. And stick to that plan. Don't deviate. I want to see this or that, be it educational, be it whatsoever. Then, next is to actually watch TV with your children if you are watching anything. Don't use it as a babysitter. There is one lady, Mary Wynn, explains in her book, The Plug-in Drug, what she says about TV, how parents use the TV. Television is a drug that parents often give to their children to keep them quiet by getting them into passive state, which can be harmful to human development. So you see, parents often are busy leaving the children unattended and are watching TV. Keep the TV off during meal times. Tape the programs you want to watch, and then in that way you can skip the commercial, and because commercial often, even when you're watching good TV programming, commercials can contain many harmful contents. And so in that way you can screen that and eliminate. Watch actively. Discuss the program. Ask questions. What is this show or program trying to make me believe? What is this program viewpoint on morality? Be critical and teach the children to critically watch whatever they watch. Try to watch cultural programs, nature and educational and religious programs of good content. Write to stations, networks, and sponsors to support good programming and to let your opinion be known about harmful shows. And one point that I also found very instructive and very illustrative. Consider your home as a sanctuary and consider TV as a guest. Consider your home as a sanctuary and the TV as a guest. How would you react? Just think about that. If a guest would come to your home and he would start talking dirty jokes to your children, if that person would, begin to describe graphic violence, if that person would use God's name in vain, use profanity, or to tell them, encourage them to drink beer or something like that, what would you do with such a guest? You would tell such a person to stop this talk or to leave your home. And we should treat the television or any media in our home in the same way. If there is a content that is unacceptable, stop it, exclude it. Don't let this media go on. So the need to unwind and to have some time for viewing a suitable media content is legitimate, but we got to be very careful how we meet that need by not watching whatever happens to be on. We need to be discriminating in our viewing habits. We need to be make constructive use of our time. We need to find better ways to relax. Even if there is a good content, because now, especially with the internet, you can find a lot of good content, and you can spend a whole day on the internet, but you should not do that. And even if TV would offer some good programming, you should not spend a whole day or most of the time. When some people complain about, oh, well, they don't have time to go to church or to religious activity, how much time people spend in front of TV? How many hours? And my final thought is the following. I will quote this: what might we miss by watching less TV? We might miss the false teaching that looking good is what counts in life. We might miss another false message that says wealth brings happiness. We might witness fewer murders and adulteries. We might hear less profanity. And we might use our imagination more. Albert Einstein said once, imagination is more important than knowledge. I mean, good imagination. TV watching excessive can stifle your imagination and our children's imagination. So this is our duty, to read, to think critically, and ultimately, watching less TV, we just might have more time for God and for our neighbors to do something good to them. So my dear friends, I shared with you some thoughts about television and our children, and I covered even broader perspective. I gave you a broader perspective, what lies behind. We have to understand there are thousands and thousands of people who are behind media. Most of them, their worldview is not what a Christian person would subscribe to. And the content they offer is not acceptable in most cases. When we come to our children, we have to be very careful. They're very susceptible. And the scientific studies prove that watching TV, excessive watching TV, and indiscriminate watching TV by children is harmful. We want them to develop in balanced, mentally, physically, and spiritually balanced individuals. We want them to be useful, to be imaginative, to be creative, to be good students in the school, to be healthy. And may we take a right approach. Maybe we be careful. Maybe be more involved with our children. May we lead them by our personal example. Because, if you tell things, and I'll tell you one thing, I have seen that. Parents are not allowing children to watch something, but they themselves are doing that. And your child is saying, Daddy or Mommy, why you can watch this and I cannot? I agree there are some programs that may not be the best, even the news, when you see the scenes of violence or whatsoever. However, many programs are not good for the adults as well, and not for children. And if you want to set a good example to your child, do what is right. So may we all do right thing, and may God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Walter, for giving us an enlightenment in regard to the media and the TV. And I hope that each one of us did not waste time in coming to this conference. Regarding the media, just 2 points. In Denver, in Colorado, when people went to watch that movie, When the Dark Rises in the Night, or something like that, I don't remember. It was, I think that was a premiere, it was midnight. And there was a case of a couple. They had a 4-month-old baby. And they brought that little baby and another toddler, probably 4 years old. So what in the universe has a mother and a father with a 4-month baby coming midnight to cinema? Because here is about blaming the new generation, blaming the young people, the kids. But I think that we have a problem with the adults as well. You as a mother, or as a father, do you think that it's appropriate for midnight to be in a scary movie with a little baby 4 months old there? It is beyond my comprehension. Oftentimes, I think that the TV, or not the technology per se, but the TV, the preoccupation to watch the whatever is there, makes husbands and wives divorce. Many times, husband and wife has a TV separately in different rooms. And the husband and the wife, they are deprived of having a nice, gentle talk. You know, a lifestyle is maintained by communication. When a husband and a wife take time for themselves to talk about nice things of life, this is what builds relationship. The less you talk to your wife or your husband, the less compliments, the less appreciation you engage, the cooling down phenomena you experience in the family. And the children as well. The children lock the room in their bedroom. They watch TV. When the mother called them for the food, they are not present because they are so into entertain, because entertainment comes with this concept. Entertain, I mean retain. So the TV has this capacity and power to enter in your mind and keep you frozen before that magic box. And I hope that this extraordinary lecture that Pastor Walter has brought us here today, it's a warning alarm for us as parents and society, because when you see the young people and the children today, they have no sense of orientation, no responsibility. They are so much gauged into that, whatever it is like that. And imagine that your child and my child will be the leader of this country tomorrow. And it's scary, believe me. It is scary. Now, I would like to conclude to thank you very, very much for being attentive to this lecture.